Hello, everyone. We're continuing with the Sichot, the speech that the Rebbe gave in, what do we say, 1958, that we've been learning for the last few days about what is the positive meaning behind and the practical meaning behind the plagues. The plagues. The first of the 10 plagues was blood. The second of the 10 plagues was frogs. So the Rebbe takes the first two and says how we can use it in ourselves, and actually, what was the purpose of it? What was how did it fit that Paro deserved frogs? How that frogs are the things that are going to fix up Paro, and that blood is going to fix up Paro. What's the So the Rebbe says, first of all, why was blood the proper plague for Pharaoh? First of all, the plagues did not come to destroy, because if they came to destroy, God could have just destroyed everything on his own. He didn't have to destroy anything. He could have just stopped creating everything. So why did? So the answer is that the big problem with Paro, and so it is today. Also, the Paro. Again, I should have started like this. It's a known thing. The Chassidut Chabad comes to teach us that everything that's found in the Torah is inside of us. And it's inside of the reason we're existing. Why are we existing? Every human being is existing in order to serve the Creator, to improve the world. It's the Creator's world. That's why the Creator made it, so we would improve it. So, but there are forces inside of us, which make that hard, which make it hard. That's part of the world. We have to fix the world. We're part of the world. We have to fix ourselves. One of the aspects inside of us is Paro, and Egypt. In Hebrew, the word Egypt is more descriptive. It's Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means limitations, false limitations. Essentially, what that is coldness to anything other than ourselves. Coldness. We're only warm to things or interested in things that can somehow or other improve us, or that are relevant to us, or that we should be afraid of. What's related to me? What about what's related to God, what God wants? Cold, totally cold to that. It's like somebody else. It's like somebody else's, front door is broken. What do I care? It's his problem. Same thing with God. God has problems. It's not my problem. That means being cold to the Creator, because after all, the Creator is creating us, creating me and you. So we should be a little bit excited about, at least more excited about Him than we are of ourselves. So what the big problem, number one problem is coldness. What do they call it? Indifference. Indifference. Indifference to God, indifference to the Torah, indifference to holiness, indifference. So what is it? That was symbolized by the Nile River. Water is cold, and the Nile River, that was the source of the identity of the Egyptians. So the first thing God had to do, if He wanted to go out of that Egypt, and also what we have to do when we want to go out of our Egypt, because our Egypt is false egotism, like we said. In order to go out, you got to be warm. You have to warm up this coldness. You have to transform the blood, the water. You have to transform the water to blood. And it's the water of the Nile River. The Nile River can be like idolatry. You worship yourself. You're cold to the Creator of the universe. You're cold to the Torah. You're cold. So you got to get rid of the cold. Okay, then the Rebbe said, but there's another level of coldness, which is even worse than water. And what is that? That's the second plague. The second plague is frogs. Frogs, it says, are even colder than water. They live in the water, first of all. They live in the water. And it says that they're so cold that they can actually take things over the water. They can take things over the water. Okay, so it says, on the other hand, water is what do you call a mineral? It's not alive. But frogs, that's already living coldness. And it says, therefore, okay, so living coldness. So frog is a creation that's the opposite of being warm. Oh, one second. Let me get this whole thing over here. Some people like the picture and they like it. And they like it to be big. 1 second. I'm sorry to make it. We had it small over there. There. There the picture. Okay. So okay. Okay. So now we're into the second plague, which is the plague of frogs. Frogs are very cold. They're living examples of cold. They're met man verstehen, we can understand what it says, a revusa, or if it says a novelty, an interesting thing about the Sfardim, about frogs. What does it say about frogs? Oh, as davka ze seinen gegangen betanorecha. It says that the frogs went in all over Egypt, and they even jumped in the ovens. The ovens obviously must mean that they lit it into ovens that were lit. In the ovens, right? In Plug, at first glance, what is the oiftu from them? What's so bad about it if the frogs jumped into the ovens? I mean, it says the frogs were everywhere. It says the frogs even jumped into people's mouths, into their stomachs. The frogs were everywhere. It says Bacha. So the frogs were in everybody's beds, and they were in everybody's closets, and everyone's pants, and everyone's shirts, and everything this. And they jumped into the ovens. Of course, what's the big thing? They jumped into the ovens. Exactly the opposite. You could eat the frogs. The cooked frog. The Chazal learn this. They learn from this the idea of Mesirut Nefesh. From this, they learn self-sacrifice. How do they learn self-sacrifice? There was a story with Daniel was taken into when Nebuchadnezzar, when he conquered Israel, he destroyed the temple. So he wanted to enhance his royal court. So he took all the wise men of Israel that he didn't kill. And, people, I guess he asked around who was wise. And he took them all and made them part of his court. And it ended up that three of them, they were they were called, I think, worshiping God. Because Nebuchadnezzar, he wanted to be God. And so he said, I'm going to throw you into the furnace if you don't stop, or you have to worship me. So they learned from the frogs. And they said, if the frogs, back then in the plague of frogs, the frog is cold. If they went into the furnace because God told them to jump into the furnace, so we're human beings, we're Jews. For sure, we should be willing to give our lives for God. And so they refused, and they threw them into the furnace, and they came out alive. So it says they learned this idea of Mesirut Nefesh. Mesirut Nefesh means literally self-sacrifice, giving your soul. As Vibalt, even though the Eibishter, even though the God had the Gehazen had told, I'm sorry, Vibalt, because God told the frogs, gain in Gans Eretz Mitzrayim to go, he told the frogs to go in all of the land of Israel. That was the order to the frogs. Cover the whole land of Israel. Zayin and Zay gegangen afilu in ovens. They weren't even told directly to go into the ovens. They were told, it was implied to them that they should go in everywhere in Egypt. So I said everywhere means also in the ovens. So they went in the ovens. Aber das declared nit for us is das selber nit given in by Canaan and Arav. Why isn't it by the other? There were also others. It says only by the frogs they went into the ovens. The frogs went into the oven. But there was also a commandment of kinim, the fleas, and the arov, the mixed animals. It doesn't say that they went into the ovens. They must have gone also into the ovens. They went everywhere. Them. Why does it only say by the frogs that they went into the ovens? Obviously, the others also went in. Them, according to what we had read, what we have said before, is verstandig. It is understood. Men had beveis Mesiras Nefesh, but tachlis, what was required was total self-sacrifice. Afilu mina katzeh from one end to the other. The Torah wants to show us an example of real, true self-sacrifice. Some people are willing to go like into battle or something because they like battle. They like to go into to fight, right? They want action. They want this. and they think that they're going to win, whatever. But to take frogs that are cold by their essence nature, and that they should go into they're the coldest of the animals, and they should go into the hottest of places into an oven, it's fardeya, just like it's fardim, like it says that frogs, which they usually come from water, and shiritz yor, and they live in the Nile River, and von deswegen, and nevertheless, they went in in the flaming fire in the oven, Eish, this is one opposite from one opposite to the other. So it shows that sometimes you have to serve God in a way which is totally not understandable, not from warmth like the blood, not to change things you can't change. You just have to jump into it. We'll see. The Tzfardeya, the frogs is gekommen oif zu schlagen dem ganzen Gebiet from Pharaoh. The frogs came to smite the whole certainty and power of Pharaoh. Was thus mean, which this means the kedusha de kalkite to inyanim from Gashmias and Chomrias. So by us, what does it mean? It means that we have to smite our coldness to God, and we have to increase our coldness to matters of the world. The world should not get us angry. It shouldn't put us into lust. Shouldn't make us do things that we know are against the Torah. To lie, to cheat, to steal. When the world calls us and says, do it, it's going to be good, you'll get away with it. And it says the opposite also. If you don't steal, you're going to be poor. You don't lie. Maybe somebody, the people think you're weak. They'll think you're stupid, right? You'll lose the case, whatever. Nevertheless, does is there any, and that's the whole idea. Was the tzfardeya, the frogs, seinen gegangen, they went into the ovens of Misharotecha, and also the other. This means as they seinen gegangen la'ashen leshen the heats. They went into cool off the heat und falsche Ebenkeit and the false egotism from Ra, from Klippa, from evil. Why was Paro and all the Egyptians so cold to Egypt? Because they were hot to themselves. They were warm to themselves. And that's what the God is giving us an advice, how we can cool off our own heat and our egotism, our excitement for ourselves, and to cool that off. Barum, because oich and lu'umazeh in lu'umazeh is faran dem inyan from varumkeit. Because also the reason that we can be cold to the world, that the world doesn't have an effect on us, is only if we're warm to God. And the same way by Paro, the reason that he was so cold to God was because he was so warm about this world. Chachman at Frier Gered, because we have already spoken, as klippa is krirus, that we said that bad, the side of bad, evil is coldness, kaltkeit. From this vegan, nevertheless, kadeya zalkenan zayin their inyan of bechira, in order that there should be free will, and that's the whole essence of man, to have free will. From klipa haben episode zu gleich. It has to be similar to holiness. Evil has to be similar to holiness. At least at least like a human, like a monkey in front of a person. Malfe is a monkey in front of a person. Therefore it's also klippa faran dem inyan from heats. Therefore, in evil, there's also excitement. We said that evil is usually cold. It says, yes, it's cold to God, but there's also excitement. They're kach and inyani olamazeh in this world. It says that Egypt was the most licentious country in the world. I think America is trying to compete. It's running a very, very close second. But it says that Egypt was a very decadent country, the most decadent of countries. Everybody married everyone, everything, total, how do you say, licentiousness in Egypt. In other words, they were excited about matters of the world. The world drew them, the world they were excited about. But things about godliness and the Creator doing what God wants, they were totally cold. The only way, that's what the teaching is. What are we learning from the frogs? B'chadei in order. Pater to Veren from Oroisgan from Mitzrayim in order to be released and to go out from the Egypt of the other side. In other words, the evil Egypt of evil. Evil means what? Selfishness, to be trapped in your own self. Al-Dirach says similarly, is Oichter Oifen Yetzia, the way from going out of Egypt. Also, there's Egypt of holiness also, that a person gets to a certain level and he said, I've learned enough Torah, I've done enough. That's it, I've done enough. Avodah shal pi tambadas. I'll serve God according to my logic, not too much, not to go crazy. Aber Nogea be'ikar is dochter a roiskan from Mitzrayim Daluma. The main thing is not just to increase in holiness. The main thing is, first of all, to get out of evil, to get out of selfishness. As Darv, how can you do it though? I mean, a person is himself, and is there anything else except for me, myself? Maybe I can, get my act together a little bit. I can, to train myself to be a better salesman, how to win friends and influence people. I remember I read that book. It's a book by Dale Carnegie, very famous book. He wrote it like in the beginning of the 1900s, How to Win Friends and Influence People. A very famous book. And from that came, almost all the coaching things that we have today. Why? Because his whole thing was, if you want to be successful, you have to not show your selfishness. You have to pretend that you really care about the other person. You really don't. The fact is, you're doing the whole thing just in order to receive from the other person. Right? You're just in order to receive. But if you want to be a good receiver, so you have to act like you really care about the other person. Which, okay, it's better than just, being miserable. But on the other hand, the end goal is still selfishness. Says good, and in the world that works okay, can do it. But godliness, it doesn't work that way. Godliness, the whole thing is genuineness. And the genuineness has to be expressed in deed. How can you be genuinely interested and warm to God and not care so much about the world? So I lose money, I make money. It's no big deal. How can you get to such a thing like this? How can you be? I mean, you can get to such a thing if you want to be like a derelict in the street. You don't care about anything. You sleep on the streets or whatever. And even those people, they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose. We're talking about a person that he genuinely cares about God so much that he's interested in the world and he acts in the world. And he could be that he makes money and he's successful, but that's not his main thing. And if he isn't successful, he says, okay, so that's what God wants. It doesn't destroy him. How can we go out from selfishness to godliness? How can we do it? Darf men rein trogen of varmikite. In a lebedikite, you have to pull a warmness and a enthusiasm, a vitality in holiness. Varum, because they're unable from all minera, because the beginning of bad and evil is being cold. How can you do it? As can sich duchten, it can appear. Yes. Was is a zoe de rash? I'm sorry. A person can think. You might think. You can think. A person can think. Was is a zoe de rash? What are you making such a big deal? As men hat nit kein kochen kedusha, that we're not excited about Torah and mitzvahs. I'm a religious Jew. What do you want from me? Men tut doch nit kein verkehrte Sache. I'm not doing any sins. I eat kosher food. I don't steal. I don't lie. Und wenn ort does, what do you care if I don't do it with any sort of enthusiasm? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. What do you want? Lubavitcher Rebbe, what are you trying to drive us crazy for? Says the Rebbe, you have to be warm. I have to be excited about holiness. Why? Says the Rebbe, Darfman Basin, you have to know. As this is nit vi meint, it's not what you think. As men can sein nit ahin and nit ahir. It could be that you're not exactly doing sins, but you're not excited about God either. It can't be nit kachen zich in kedusha and oich nit kachen zich in inyan ra. Person says, listen, I'm not excited about God, and I'm not excited about the world. I do what I'm supposed to do. I'm a good Jew. It says it can't be. Why? The room, because oy men is called to kedusha. If you're called to holiness, is sov vedmen ligan in tuma Mitzrayim. In the end, it's going to just lead to eventually the impurity of Egypt. Why? Because eventually something is going to come to make you excited. Something is going to happen to make you excited. You'll get excited about money. You'll get excited about power. You'll get excited about some sort of pleasure. Right? Something is going to touch you off, or you'll get angry at somebody or whatever. Maybe to make this bigger here. There we go. Erzet Nes, you can see, for instance, a big miracle. The Rebbe is trying to say warmth is necessary, even if it means self-sacrifice, like the frogs. Warmth is necessary. You have to be excited. We have to be excited about Judaism, to see the goodness of serving the Creator. If not, then what's going to happen? A person could see a miracle, umofet, and a clear proof that God exists. Come to Yetzer Hara, and your Yetzer Hara will cool you down. And it'll say, was hast was zu gespoiled werden? What are you getting so excited about? What are you getting so excited about? So, God did the 6-day war, right? We won, defeated our enemy 6-day war. We were attacked from all sides. We were outnumbered 5-1, and we won. God split the sea, split the Yam Suf. He split the sea. All of a sudden, the Yetzer Hara, the selfish impulses come along and says to him, and says, mit him, it talks to him and says, was zu inspire? What are you getting so excited from a miracle? Du allein glaubst, you believe, as alle inyanim coming from the Eibishter. You believe that God creates everything. When the Eibishter is a kliyach, and God can do anything He wants. Was legabi, kol yachol. Was legabi im haben alle olamos, which by God, all of the worlds they don't even exist. God is creating them all from nothing. If He wants to, they're really made from zero. So by God, everything is really zero. Is doch peshut, so it's obvious, is by Him haben kein betreff nit drei osius un ken Iberbeten von Ziruf Osios Chometz Oivzus Shemen. There's a story about Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa that he was tremendously poor and he didn't have any money for lights. Maybe it was lights of Shabbos, could be. So his daughter said, I don't have any money. Oil costs money. So he said, well, do you have anything in the house? She said, yeah, but not oil. What do you have? I got some vinegar. So he said, okay. So use vinegar. He says, but vinegar is not combustible. It's not going to light. Let's try it. She put vinegar and it lit. I said, how could it possibly be? This is amazing. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe there was really oil. He said, no. Why does oil light? Well, you think it's a chemical, natural process? No. It's a miracle that God made it and decided that oil is combustible. The same God that took the letters chametz and He created vinegar from everything is created from God's letters. He created vinegar from these 3 letters, chametz, so we can just change the letters and make it into oil. Same thing. Yetzer Hara comes to you. You see the sea splits, right? The Jews are attacked from all sides. All of a sudden, miracle, right? Nothing happens. Saddam Hussein shoots the 37 missiles, 39 missiles, and nobody gets killed. Nobody gets hurt. That's a big miracle. Comes along the Yetzer Hara and says, so big deal. So God did a miracle. So what? Don't get excited. You want to say it's God? Say it's God. Write in the papers. But don't get excited. God creates the whole world, right? What's the big deal if he just makes a little miracle, splits the sea, or nobody gets killed? Mi yomer l'shem yadlik. The person who's the same God that told that oil should light, it says that vinegar will light. Heint was vu darfst du nispal werden on rois gehen from the kalim. God can do whatever he wants to. What are you getting excited for? Just because God does a miracle? So what? The kavanah, the intention of this evil impulse, and it's very interesting. There is inside of each and every one of us a impulse against God. And if you don't believe it, just try to do something godly or a little bit more, right? All of a sudden you hear this voice coming and say, hey, you're tired. Hey, you're hungry. Hey, you can't do that. Why should you do that for? Don't go in the synagogue. Don't pray. Don't put on tefillin. Don't this. All of a sudden there's a voice inside of you saying, listen, you got a choice. Either you can or you can't. I'm telling you, don't. Right? It's an impulse towards selfishness. Impulse says the Rebbe, how are you going to get out of it? Sometimes you have to transform the coldness to hot warmth, and sometimes you have to just jump in the fire. And so, upkilling, the whole purpose of the Yetzer Hara, the selfish impulse, is to cool off a person from godliness. He'll say intellectually you can do whatever you want to, but don't get excited. Is in Kurirus the Kedusha. So what's going on over there? Okay. The answer to this is holy coldness. Be cold to matters of this world. The kavanah from them, the intention of the Yetzer Hara is, we did this with this, yes, the Yetzer Hara is to cool a person off for godliness. And we have to be cold, utilize coldness, but it should be holy coldness, namely being cold to matters of the world, to matters of Egypt. Therefore, Darfman, Gedenken, we have to remember that the first step that we have to take to be going out of Egypt is blood. First of all, begin to be excited and being heat ourselves up, warm to all matters of holiness. Punkt wie men darf Paulin, just like we had to do. But there's this warmness in holiness. Blood is also, we have to do the same thing and be cold to matters of the world, and that is frogs. Frogs is coldness, and we use that coldness to serve God. Was does seinen euch the zwei tenuos? This is the way of suamira, turning from bad. That's the frogs, and asay tov, and doing good. Turning from bad means using coldness to bad things, to selfish things, and doing good. That's the blood, being warm to holy things. When durch day, by means of this, these zwei tenuos, by means of this, then we can begin to go out of Egypt. Okay, my friends, have a good day with Moshiach. Now I'm going to do the Yom Yom if you want to listen, but here we go. Shalom ubracha.